Yeah. I want to thank everybody for coming to a spectacular, wonderful, joyous celebration of life for Skip. And for those of you who don't know me, I'm Bentley Smith. I'm one of Skip's neighbors, and June has kindly asked me to introduce things, and June would like to say a few words.
I'd like to thank everybody for coming today. Anybody that's ever had a beer with Skip knows how much he likes to tell stories. So I'm going to tell you two stories today. The first is, a lot of people ask how we met. The town that I came from was building the Trident submarines for the Royal Navy, and they'd bought the missile system from the American government. So my friends and I used to go out at night, and we'd heard that these Americans were coming. We used to see them out, and I'd say, "Hey, when are the Americans coming? Hey, when are the Americans coming?" And then one night we saw the Royal Navy guys out, and he said, "I've got one, he's here." He's called Skip. Wow. So I said, "Okay." And I said to him, "Have you brought chewing gum and nylons?" And he said, "What?" I said, "My mother told me that Americans brought chewing gum and nylons and Spam." So he said, "Okay." He said, "No, I haven't any." So we didn't actually start dating until a couple of months after that. And that Christmas, he did buy me chewing gum and nylons. And this is from the submarine. This is a UK and US government furnished Trident missile system. So anyway, that's my first little story. And the other one is the thing that changed Skip's life. In 1963, he was going around California with his best buddy, Gus. They were A1 for Vietnam, so nobody would give them a job. They were living off tomato ketchup packets from McDonald's and anything they could get their hands on. And one of the things they were doing was selling their blood. So they went and sold the blood, and then they needed more money, so they needed somewhere to live. So they went again to sell the blood, and the second time, Paul Gustafson, Gus, started to pass out, giving his blood. So the nurse went up to him, pulled the tube out of his arm and said, "When was the last time you gave blood?" And he said, 2 weeks ago. She said, "Out." He said, "Can we still have our orange juice?" So they went outside, and they were sitting on a bench outside wondering what they were going to do next, because they really didn't want to go to Vietnam. And Skip looked up, he saw a sign, said, "Your country needs you, join the military." So he said, "Gus, I think I found the answer." So with no further ado, they found the recruiting site and off he went. So they went into the recruiting site, and the first door they came to was the Coast Guard door. And there was a sign on the door, that said, "Come to lunch." So they said, "Oh well." So the next one they went to was the Air Force door. They went in, the guy was sitting with his feet up on the desk, and he had a hole in the bottom of his shoe. So he said, "Can I help you?" And he said, "No, I don't think so." So the next door was the army. So they let it past that one, they weren't going to go in that door. So the next door was the Marines. So they opened that door, and this guy said, "What the hell do you two guys want?" Nothing. So the next one was the Navy, and they opened that door, and the guy said, "Hi guys, come on in. Would you like some coffee and cookies?" He said, "Yes, please." So they were sat there and they were eating the coffee and cookies. And the guy said, "What do you want?" They said, "We'd like to join the Navy." So he said, "When were you thinking of going?" So Skip said, "Tomorrow." So they filled out the forms that afternoon. And he said, "Would you like to go in boats or submarines?" So Skip said, "What pays the most?" He said, "Submarines." He said, "Submarines." So he said, "Right, come back tomorrow morning and we looked at the forms and everything." So they went back the next morning and the guy said to Skip, "You," he said, "you're in." He said, "You get yourself back to New York, you need childcare support. There's a warrant against you." So Skip joined and he went to boot camp not long after. And there's a photograph there of him. He's so skinny you can hardly tell it's him. And that actually changed his life and taught him the skills about missiles and nuclear weapons, which carried him through the rest of his life. And I wouldn't be here today if he hadn't joined the Navy and then went into locking. So it was meant to be. Can I have a little seat?
Of course. I can't do anything without a band. Although I am supposed to remind you to please turn your cell phones off.
chose this song to honor.
That's good.
Oh, that was slide. twilight and evening bell. After that, the dark, and may there be no sadness of farewell when we embark. When we embark. When we embark, and may there be no sadness of farewell when we embark.
For though from out our bourne of time and place the flood may bear us from, we hope to see our pilot face to face when we have crossed the bar.
When we have crossed the bar. When we have crossed the bar, we hope to see our pilot face to face when we have crossed the bar. When we have crossed the bar. When we have crossed the bar, we hope to see our pilot face to face when we have crossed the bar.
Before we get to letting the rest of you share, Jen has asked me to read some of the emails that she's gotten recently for people who wish they could be here but couldn't. And first off, from Lieutenant Commander Roy Harness and his wife Carol. In 1967, my husband, Lieutenant Commander Roy Harness, was an E4, third-class petty officer, on the USS James Madison submarine in Charleston, South Carolina. Skip was an E5, or a second-class petty officer. We had recently gotten married, and Skip suggested that all the married guys in the torpedo department and their wives get together for dinner at the AC-Doocy Club on the base. The AC-Doocy Club is a club just for E5 and E6 petty officers. There were 6 couples, including us. We were the last couple to arrive. The other 5 couples were already seated in the dining room. When the man at the door checked my husband's military ID, he refused to allow us entry because my husband was an E4 and too junior to be in the club. At this point, Skip came out of the dining room to see what the problem was. He pointed out to the man checking the IDs that there were 10 people sitting in the dining room waiting to order dinner, and all 12 of us were going to have dinner together. If he refused us entry, the entire group would stand up and walk out. The man relented, and all 12 of us had a lovely dinner at the AC-Doocy Club that night. I think this shows what a good man Skip was, because he stood up for his friends and coworkers. Next, from Skip's nephew, Steve. Skip was a great brother to his sister and a great uncle to his sister's 3 sons, Mike, Steve, me, and Stuart. The older brother, Mike, and I thought of him more as an older brother than an uncle. In fact, we didn't refer to him as Uncle Skip, just Skip, although we did spend a lot of time with Skip, particularly when he was on active duty in the Navy or living in California and England. I still have some fond memories of him. My first memory of him is when our parents dropped Mike and me at a movie theater where Skip was working as an usher. He would have been 16 or 17 at the time. Our parents were probably going shopping and thought it was a good way to keep us occupied for a few hours and at the same time have Skip watch over us. I'm sure there were earlier memorable instances, but this is the first one I recall. In early 1960, our father took a civilian job at Yuma Proving Grounds Test Center, where he was testing some of the first unmanned aerial surveillance vehicles that we now call drones. Skip was able to get a job at the facility, and he too moved to Yuma and lived with us for a short time. I remember Skip looking like James Dean, dressed in jeans, a white t-shirt with lucky stripes rolled up in a sleeve, and a pompadour-style haircut. I can't imagine Skip. So. He bought a 1950s Ford, I believe, which was probably his first car. One day he arrived home with the hood missing from his car, which, as I recall, was blown off when he was driving through the Yuma desert at a high rate of speed. At some point, Skip moved out of the house and had a small Airstream trailer behind an older woman's house. Mike and I visited Skip at this trailer once, no doubt another babysitting assignment for him. The trailer was very compact, but I'm sure the rent was affordable. In 1961, our family moved back to Hagerstown, Maryland, but Skip stayed behind in Yuma. Soon after, the job at the test center ended for Skip, and eventually he wound up in California. No doubt he spent time in the Imperial Valley of California, because I remember him joking about making a living picking lettuce and surviving on fried potatoes and Hollywood candy bars. Having enough of this, he eventually enlisted in the Navy, where he served for 28 years on active duty and in the reserves. In 1963, or 64, Skip was home in Hagerstown, probably on leave. He attended one of my Little League baseball games when I hit my first and only home run. I believe Skip got a bigger kick out of that than I did. I should have rubbed his head for good luck before he lost his hair. When my wife Robin and I married in Phoenix, Arizona, Skip attended and served as our wedding photographer. The pictures are great, and we really appreciate that he took them for us. When he was working in England in the 1990s, Skip invited my mother to visit him and took her on tours through England, France, and Germany. I know they both really enjoyed that time together. It was very difficult for Robin and me to see Skip, who was once an energetic, fun-loving guy, in such a feeble condition when we visited this past October. Even so, we are grateful that we were able to see him before he slipped away. I will remember Skip for better times like those I've described. And that was Skip's thing. Some friends from Wales, Don and Sue, wrote, Skip was a complete gentleman, very alert to the feelings of others. He kept my sometimes raucous husband under control, such as the time when I hadn't known Don for long, and Skip came with Don from Barrow to stay for the weekend in North Wales. I had some work colleagues round to meet him, and Skip sounded the alarm that one of them was wearing a Greenpeace badge. Skip immediately kept Don from doing stuff in the kitchen to stop Don from putting his foot in it. I'm sure he did that sort of thing many times. We had lovely times in Florida with Skip and June. Skip would take us out on his boat in the gorgeous Florida sunshine, and we'd end the day with a barbecue, living the dream, wonderful memories. And her husband says, I met Skip when I went to the Trident training facility in Kings Bay, Georgia in 1989. He was the boss of the Lockheed civilian trainers, and I was the senior officer of a group of Royal Navy trainees sent over in preparation for the UK purchase of a Trident. We hit it off right away, an ex-submariner with a British sense of humor. In 1990, I went to the shipyard as crew for the build of the first UK Trident boat, and there was Skip, senior Lockheed technical guy. We were both living on Walney Island and became close friends during the next 3 years. I will never forget his infectious laughter, no more so than the time Skip and June visited Sue and me in North Wales. We were at our local pub, and my brother Derek told me a funny story about a man showing off his pierced bits in the gents' bar. Skip laughed so much that tears were running down his face. We kept in touch over the years with visits both ways, and we always spoke to each other around Christmas time. I shall miss his opening line, "Hi, Thornton." Rest in peace, Skip. We will miss you, a fellow submariner, a gentleman, a man of integrity, and a true friend. From June's daughter, Jeanette. I consider myself very lucky to have known Skip, and privileged to have such a kind man as a stepfather. I remember when my ma'am first started dating Skip. I was 18 years old, and I warmed to this American man very easily. I recall he invited me for a meal with him and ma'am, and he cooked lobster. He must have been trying to impress, and he certainly did. I was really happy when ma'am and Skip got married, so I could see he loved my ma'am to the moon and back. He also became a great friend to me. One time, when I came over from the UK to visit ma'am and Skip in Jacksonville, we went to a swamp park in Georgia. Skip thought I'd like to see the alligators, as we don't have those in Barrow and Furnace. He was excited. Ma'am and me were definitely not. The boat was a little rowing boat with open sides, not reassuring when you're surrounded by gators. I have never prayed so hard for a thunderstorm, and as luck would have it, a thunderstorm came. Skip wasn't impressed, and we had to leave and take shelter in an IHOP. And there were a lot of son of the bitches. I'd like to finish by saying, Skip, thank you for loving ma'am and coming into our lives. I am grateful for the special memories we've shared throughout the years. I was lucky having you as my stepdad, and my daughters were lucky having Grampy Skippy. Rest in peace, my second dad. From Steve and Marilyn, some friends from England. We first met Skip when we started going out with June in Barrow. He was an American through and through, but he fitted into the English northern way of life with no problem at all. He just related to people wherever they came from, and a night out with Skip was always an experience. He appreciated the beautiful countryside of the Lake District, the wilderness of the coast, and the easygoing pubs in the villages. He even developed a taste for English beer. Eventually, he went back to Florida, and later June followed him, and they married and started a new life together. We visited them there in their first condo in Punta Gorda and had a taste of life on the Gulf Coast. Skip had a boat, and we so enjoyed going out on the waterways with a man who obviously knew his craft and enjoyed the sea. June was also at home on the sea, as she had grown up on the Cumbrian coast, and it was something that made them both very happy. We saw him several times after that, either in the US or in England, and he always struck me as the quintessential American. Friendly, opinionated, confident, and full of life. Determined to get as much enjoyment as possible from whatever life offered. It was a tragedy that ill health struck him so young, and he had so much to bear in his later years. He faced this with a fortitude that characterized his outlook on life. We have a picture of June, Skip, and Ellie stuck on the wall of our office. June and Skip were laughing, and they looked very happy. And that is how we will remember Skip, the man with the big grin and the loud laugh. It was a pleasure and privilege to have known you, Skip. May you rest in peace. Stephen. And from Alan, Skip's stepson. Hello. I am honored to speak to you virtually, and thank you all for coming today. My name is Alan Suman. Skip was my stepfather, and it is a great honor today that we celebrate his life. Unfortunately, due to work constraints, I cannot be there in person to celebrate his life with you. It is with great humility and gratitude that I was Skip's stepson. He was a man that gave me strength, taught me how to live, and think as a man. He was a rock of strength in my life that will not be forgotten. I would like to, at this time, express my gratitude that he lived a life with me. He was always there for me when others were not. He led a life of honor for his country, as well as his family and dear ones. He will never know how much I love to hear his voice. I would often say to him, "Happy Father's Day," just because. Skip would often help me with my schoolwork and prepared me to be a man of a life that was right and proper. He took me into his heart as I took him into mine. I remember in Groton, Connecticut, Dad and some other guys got off the boat, Dad and some other guys off the boat had built a huge doghouse with Snoopy on top, all made out of snow. On another occasion, here in Charleston, we had a Christmas party. The guys from the boat would wear my Christmas gifts, a space helmet, and ride my big wheel. I hardly had a chance to try it out. They might, parentheses, they might have been ready. These are special moments to me that I will never forget. He took the time for me when he was not deployed that I needed as a young man. For example, he built a bedroom set for me in 1972, and of course, glue was supposed to be used in certain areas, but I wanted to be a man like he was, and so when he stepped away, I took it upon myself to use the glue. I, of course, glued my nightstand drawers together. So you can possibly understand how I watched him and wanted so terribly to be like him. Yes, the drawers did not open after I glued them shut, but he fixed them and showed me how to mend the brand new furniture that I had tried to fix that did not need repair. At a very young age, I saw a man that I wanted to emulate, a man that had control of situations that were beyond my control. I often was by his side as a child, watching and observing, as he was the man I wanted to be. I remember he was always involved in my school and Cub Scout activities. And he had coached for me in my baseball team in elementary school. And that was the moment he knew for certain I was uncoordinated and would never be a professional athlete. I remember the times we chopped firewood in California in the 1974 Ford pickup we had when we moved from Charleston to California. I, a cat or two, and a pet turtle all rode in the bed of the truck with a pass-through boot in the front. I remember Family Day on the subway here in Charleston, where I did not push any buttons on the missile tubes like the other kids had attempted. I listened to him. I remember him for always being my father as if there were no other. He protected me, provided for me, and I know in his own way he loved me. He wanted me to be better than what I knew I could be, and little did he know how much I admired him and looked up to no other. As a young boy, he made me see what a man should and could be. When he was deployed at sea, I missed him terribly. And I imagined I was with him on the boat, USS James Madison. This strong and confident man took me away to a better world, far from my other. This man who came into my life, my mind, and my heart, I was delighted to have my father. The stories I have of the two of us could go on for days, weeks, or months, but as we know, time and tide wait for no man. As I grew older and our lives changed, he never left me out of his world. He included me on adventures, and I was captivated by this man who included me in his life. He met the love of his life in the early 90s. June, and showed me how true love was. She was, and still is, the best woman that ever entered his heart. He will always love him, she will always love him for 1,000,000 lifetimes, and know he will always be by her side. You see, he does not need to be there physically to continue to watch over his love. She was the one that stole his heart and took his breath away. She was the one that often some never find, but he found her, and life was bliss. I know at this moment he is blowing her a kiss. The one person that June Suman and I, Alan Suman, knew, Skip. He was our man of steel. He was our Superman. I know that we will miss him with every beat of our hearts. I would like to express my gratitude for you, June, the light of his life. I thank you for standing by his side and never wavering. You were his world, and I was proud and delighted to be a part of his world also. I fear our hearts will always be broken, but as Sir Barry Gibb said, how can you mend a broken heart? The memories, the pictures, the love that we all shared with Skip will always be a part of our broken hearts. There will be times when smiles trace across our face, and we will remember him in the matters of the heart. This man, my stepfather, Skip, my dad, my pops, will always live. For he will live in the Hall of Dreams and know that we will again meet one day. To you, Dad, I salute you and know that I love you. And remember, we will meet again in the Gardens of Memory in the Palace of Dreams. That is where you and I shall meet again. I thank you, Father, my pops, my Skip, for being my everything. So to you, Dad, I say good night and frolic. I just have to be able to see again. Now it's your turn to share. For people who are wanting to share a Skip story, you don't have to read long things. So please come up. Yeah, so.
Good afternoon.
And I would introduce you again with my memory name is very short.
Brian.
Right.
Oh, I think I'm the only blood relative of Skip, or his cousin. I've known Skip since 1947. It's been a while. And we first met June, my wife, Julie, and I. Oh gosh, June, what year would that have been?
It was a family reunion, so.
Oh, we first, I didn't understand, we first knew of June
When we came to Barrow.
when we came to Barrow, trips to England. I'm gonna have to say early 1990s.
Yeah.
And Skip took us around Barrow. He took us to Dove Cottage in the Lakes District.
Talk louder.
Talk louder. Okay, I'm sorry. He took us to the Lakes District. He took us to Dove Cottage. We drove by where the Trident submarines were being built. And he told us that he had a young woman that he was seeing and that her name was June. I said, well, we're going to meet her, aren't we? He says, no. He says, she might get the wrong idea. If she meets family. That's the story.
Anyone else? Very sure.
Come on, Rob, you've got to start doing that. Dave?
All right. I'll just stand right here. So when I moved into this neighborhood, I've never lived in a duplex or a villa or anything like that. And my dad was a little concerned because sometimes I'm difficult to get along with. And so when I finally met Skip and June as my roofmates or my neighbors, he was like, tell me about your neighbor. I'm like, well, he's Navy. He's a submariner, and he's married to a girl from Britain. He goes, oh, well, you spent some time over there. I said, yeah, I was over in Woodbridge and Bentwaters for a while. So I understood a little bit about the dynamics. And my dad goes, well, what do you think of him? I said, well, he likes beer, and we sit in the driveway, and we fix the world problems. So I think everything's going to be great. And it turned out just great. So, and I miss him every day.
Must be somebody else, Frida. No.
I'm not good at history.
Okay, it must be somebody.
I'd love to be that one.
Well, I think it was a wonderful neighbor.
Yeah.
We had not lived in the neighborhood very long, and here came Skip. He came over, Gordon was doing something in the garage, and I don't know, he was probably there an hour. They chatted the entire time, had never seen each other before. Skip did not know a stranger, did he, Jim?
No.
And, you know, we've heard all these wonderful stories now about him, and, you know, what a dignified person, what a role model he was, what a fun-loving driveway neighbor he was. But I want to know more about the guy that's in that picture in a pink tutu. Now, June, I think that deserves a little bit more explanation. And is he dressed like Cher as well?
Yes.
Okay. I think we need to know a little bit
Maybe.
more.
Maybe.
We were living in PGI in a condo, and I was playing social director at that time, and I arranged a Christmas party for the neighbours in a restaurant in PGI. So secretly I got together with some of the neighbours and we planned for the men to do the dance of the Sugar Plum Fairies. No one knew that this was going to happen, and they sneaked into the bathrooms and they came out dressed in pink tutus. I have a video of it actually. And I put the music on and they were twirling around. There was 4 of them. And everybody thought it was hilarious. All enjoyed it. And then the following year, they said, the Christmas party, is there any entertainment, June? I said, no. So anyway, Skip and the next door neighbour went into the bathrooms again. And they came out dressed as Sonny and Cher. They sang I Got You, Babe. Yeah. Do you want to say a few words, Darren?
So this is when Skip and June entered my life, was in 2001. We lived at Clipper Cove together, so we've been neighbors in 2 different communities. They're both just salt of the earth people. My mother lived with me for a time, and Skip used to come over and talk to her, and she was ill, and that was always the highlight of her day, is when Skip came and visited with her. But we always had fabulous parties, and Skip never knew a stranger, but he liked to make sure that people felt comfortable and welcome, and he was just a wonderful person.
Yeah, he was.
I don't have the words that we have over here, but I just want to say, I moved in 4 or 5 years ago, and the first thing that happened to me was to come down in his cart, and we both were sharing illnesses that we both had, and this was a common occurrence. We would come down, we know how we're feeling and so on. And after that, it was, whenever we saw each other, it was always a hi, how are you? You know, if everything going okay, you feeling all right? How was your doctor appointment? So it revolved around doctors a lot. But I just want to say, June, that wonderful man, and was happy to be. I'm happy to have been his neighbor. So appreciate it.
Somebody else?
I'm gonna talk one more time.
You are a relative, aren't you?
For a really long time. So, you might have gathered from some of the stories you've heard over the years, but Skip was self-made more than anybody you can imagine. His father died when he was about 9. His mother went to work at an aircraft factory. She would get laid off here and there. And a much older sister who had her own family with Steve, who led her, which we met earlier. Skip managed to graduate from high school, worked through high school. That might not have happened. He told me, he said, Brian, he said, you grew up in the lap of luxury compared to me. He had a working mother. They never had a car. They never owned their own house. They wanted to go somewhere and they got on the bus. Skip didn't get to go to college, but the Navy found him, or he found the Navy, and he found you. And he had an amazingly successful life, given that start.
I want to say one more thing too about Skip is how strong he was. Skip, the whole time when I say that we talk about our illnesses and so on, he never ever complained. Never one time did he ever say to me, this hurts, that hurts, or whatever. He just went about his business every day, and he was a strong individual.
Brian, the reason they didn't have a car was because his daddy, on the way home from a bar one night, left it on the railroad tracks. And it was hit by a train.
I'm not even surprised.
And that was the rest of the story.
Anyone else? Skip had wonderful friends. So look to your left, look to your right, look at this group. Thank you